At her birthday party, Paula clinked glasses with everyone in the room. Everyone except me. I stood there, holding the gift she once said she'd always dreamed of. I'd spent weeks getting everything just right. Found wrapping paper in her favorite color, tied the bow myself, even skipped work meetings to make sure I could show up early. I wanted this night to matter, but when I walked in, she didn't even look at me. Ryan, her old college friend, was the first person she hugged. She laughed so loudly with him, her hand lingering on his arm like I wasn't even there. People greeted me out of politeness, but Paula? Not even a simple, hi. She passed me 3 times, once to fix her makeup, once for photos, and once, ironically, to grab champagne for Ryan. At first, I thought maybe she just hadn't seen me. But then I caught her glance in my direction. Just for a second. She hesitated, then looked away like she couldn't be bothered. I wasn't invisible. She just wanted me to feel that way. When she cut the cake, Ryan was right beside her. He joked, I should have been the one making the wish. Paula giggled and said, maybe next year. Everyone laughed, and that's when it hit me. This wasn't a slip-up. It was intentional, a message, a public one. So I smiled, I pulled out my phone, walked up to the small stage by the DJ booth, and tapped the mic. Twice. The music stopped. People turned. Paula froze mid-laugh, her eyes wide when she saw me standing under the spotlight. Sorry to interrupt, I said. But I have some good news too. I looked straight at her and smiled. I just got engaged. Gasps rippled through the room. Paula blinked, confused. To Wendy, I added, turning to look at her best friend across the room. Wendy froze for a second, then slowly nodded. She understood. The room fell into stunned silence. Paula's wine glass slipped from her hand and, shattered on the floor, I didn't flinch. I'd clinked too many empty glasses with her in the past. Tonight, I finally raised one for myself. My name's Mitchell. I'm 28, I work in interior design, and for the past 3 years, I've been in a relationship with Paula. Smart, charming, the kind of woman who lights up a room. We didn't start with fireworks. It was quieter, steadier. She had just moved to the city, trying to get her career in event management going. I had redesigned the lobby of the firm where she interned. She complimented the chandelier, said it looked like dripping stars. Her eyes lit up when she said it. I still remember. We had our differences. She hated mess. I was always late. She loved jazz. I preferred silence. But we met halfway. Or at least I thought we did. In the beginning, she made time. She asked about my work, sent me photos of furniture she loved. She made playlists for our night drives, left notes in my coat pocket before I went to work. Then the notes stopped, the playlist disappeared, replaced by unread messages, or messages left on read. She started coming home late, client meetings, she said, team sessions. At first, I believed her. Then Ryan showed up. Old college friend, new job in the city, didn't know anyone. He's like family, she said, like it was obvious. I didn't push back. I stayed quiet the first time she canceled dinner to have coffee with him. By the 3rd time, when I sat alone at a restaurant under a reservation with my name, I started noticing things. I'm not replacing you, she said when I finally asked. He just needs support. Support looked a lot like movie nights, grocery runs, and planning surprise parties. For him. It wasn't just her time. She gave him her spark, her laughter. I got silence. Conversations trimmed down to logistics. But the final straw wasn't some dramatic moment. It was the build-up. It was how she stopped looking up when I entered the room and she was on the phone. How she never posted pictures of us anymore, but Ryan's stories were full of her. So I started keeping score. Not out of bitterness, just to prove to myself I wasn't making it all up. In the past year, she forgot our anniversary, my birthday, a job milestone I asked her to celebrate with me. But she remembered Ryan's dog's vet appointment. Still, I stayed, hoping things would shift, that maybe Ryan would figure himself out and stop depending on her, that maybe she'd remember us, but people don't forget the things they truly care about. I remember this one Sunday. She had fallen asleep on my chest. I ran my fingers through her hair and whispered, "Do you think we'll still be like this in 10 years?" She didn't even open her eyes, just smiled and said, "As long as you don't get bored of me first." Funny, right? Now we barely talked unless it was about chores. The apartment felt colder. She wore the same old hoodie when we went out, but dressed up for Ryan, said she was too tired to talk to me, then video chatted with him from the living room. I started wondering, was it me? Had I lost whatever spark I once had? But no. Ryan was just something different, something she didn't have to work for anymore, and most importantly, he wasn't me. And that hurt more than anything, because I had given Paula everything, my time, my loyalty, my patience, and what I got in return was the slow, quiet ache of being replaced. So at her birthday, as she laughed with him like I never existed, I stopped, hoping. I stopped trying. I didn't get angry. I got clear. If I didn't matter in her world, I'd stop trying to belong in it. And that night, I finally chose myself. Everything changed the week before Paula's birthday. I had asked her what kind of celebration she wanted. She was stretched out on the couch, scrolling through her phone, her legs resting across my lap. "Nothing big," she said casually, "just a small gathering. You don't need to stress." So I didn't stress, but I still made a plan. I talked to her best friend Wendy, and together we found the perfect gift, something Paula had admired in a store window months ago. A delicate necklace, simple but elegant, with a little charm that matched the earrings she always wore when she needed a boost of confidence. "I want to wear something like this when I feel unstoppable," she had said that day, smiling at her reflection. I remembered. Maybe some part of me thought that if I gave her something that reminded her of that version of herself, she'd remember us too, the version that laughed over burnt toast in bed, that made up fake lives for strangers in muted documentaries. But when her birthday came, it all felt off. She told me the party would be at Ryan's place, said it was just more spacious and that he'd offered to help. I didn't protest. I just asked what time to come. Maybe around 7. Everyone should be there by then. Arrived at 6:30, necklace boxed carefully, a small bouquet in hand. She didn't greet me. She was in the kitchen with Ryan, laughing over something I couldn't hear. I waited for a glance, a wave, a smile, something, but nothing. People started trickling in. They greeted me politely, but their expressions said more than their words. That awkward kind of hello, the kind people give when they sense something is wrong but don't want to get involved. Wendy noticed. She walked over and gently asked, "Are you okay?" I smiled. Why wouldn't I be? At 7:30, Paula stood at the center of the room to blow out her candles. Ryan stood beside her, his arm casually slung around her shoulder, like it had always been there. Someone joked, "You two look like a couple." The room erupted in laughter. Paula laughed too. She didn't correct them. I didn't even feel my own heartbeat after that. I sat quietly on the edge of the sofa, the necklace box clenched in my hand so tightly I thought it might snap open. I waited for her to come to me, to acknowledge me, to say something, anything. She never did. Eventually, I stepped outside for air. A few minutes later, Wendy followed. "She's been weird lately," she said softly. I nodded. "I know." She says everything's fine, but I can tell something's off. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was too busy trying to understand how the woman I loved had drifted so far away from me, without a fight, without a conversation, without even noticing. When we walked back inside, Paula was pouring drinks for Ryan and taking selfies with him. Someone shouted, "Get one with the birthday girl and her favorite guy," they posed. And just before the camera snapped, she rested her head on his shoulder. That was it. Something in me broke. Not in anger, not even in jealousy. In quiet disbelief. I had shown up for her. Again. I brought the gift she wanted. I rearranged my schedule. I stood through a night full of her laughter that didn't belong to me. And yet, in a room full of people, she made it crystal clear that my presence didn't matter. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. Later that night, when the crowd was thinner and people were dancing or eating, I walked up to her. "Can we talk?" I asked gently. She looked at me like I'd interrupted something sacred. "I'm kind of busy," she said, glancing over at Ryan. "Can it wait?" Sure, it could wait, but I wouldn't. I caught Wendy's eye across the room. She was watching quietly, like she'd been watching the whole time. We exchanged a look, and that was the moment I made my decision. If Paula could treat me like a stranger, I'd stop acting like her shadow. If she wanted me to be invisible, I'd remind her I still existed, and not in the way she expected. I couldn't sleep that night. Not from anger, not even heartbreak. From the silence. She came home late, probably after helping Ryan clean. I was already in bed, eyes closed, pretending to sleep. She paused in the doorway. I felt her hesitate. Then she tiptoed past me, like she was afraid to wake a stranger. And that's exactly what I felt like. A stranger. In my own relationship, I stared at the ceiling, counting every second she didn't turn to me. Every inch between us in that bed felt like a canyon. I used to reach for her in my sleep. Now, I didn't move. The next morning, she was already dressed when I walked into the kitchen. She poured coffee like nothing had happened. "I'm heading to Ryan's," she said, just like that. "He needs help finalizing the office event plan." I didn't say anything, just took a bite of toast and kept chewing. She glanced at me. Her lips parted like she was about to say something. Maybe she wanted me to stop her. Maybe she wanted a fight, a reaction, something. But I gave her nothing. She left 10 minutes later. The door clicked shut behind her, softly, like she'd done it 100 times before. I looked at the empty chair across from me, the one where she used to sit, stealing bites off my plate with a guilty smile. There was a time she'd call me on her lunch break just to hear my voice. Now, I wasn't even worth a text. I started thinking about all the little things that had changed while I wasn't paying attention. The way affection had slowly disappeared. When she stopped asking if I needed anything from the store, when I'd come home from work and she wouldn't even look up from her phone. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was this dull, hollow ache, like I'd already lost her, and I was just trying to figure out when, exactly, that happened. Maybe it was the day she forgot our second anniversary. Or when she stopped inviting me to work events, saying I wouldn't enjoy them anyway. Or maybe it was last night, when she laughed just a little too comfortably in someone else's arms. The worst part, she didn't even realize what she'd done. She thought I'd always be there, that I'd keep waiting, that my silence meant patience, not pain. But she was wrong, and soon, she'd know it too. Everything shifted the week before Paula's birthday. I'd asked her what kind of celebration she wanted. She was stretched out on the couch, scrolling through her phone with her legs across my lap. "Nothing big," she said casually. "Just a small gathering, don't stress." So I didn't stress, but I still planned. I reached out to her best friend, Wendy, and asked for help picking out a gift. Months ago, Paula and I had walked past a little boutique, and she stopped. At the window. There was a delicate necklace with a tiny charm that matched her favorite earrings. She smiled at her reflection and said, "I want to wear something like this when I feel unstoppable." I remembered. Maybe, deep down, I thought if I gave her something that reminded her of the version of herself she loved, she might remember us too. The version of us that used to laugh in bed over burnt toast, who watched documentaries on mute just to make up stories about the people on screen. But when her birthday came, everything felt different. She told me the party would be at Ryan's apartment. His place had more space and he offered to help. I just nodded and asked what time to be there. "Around 7, she said. "Everyone should be there by then." I showed up at 6:30. I had the necklace boxed up and a small bouquet in my hand. But Paula didn't greet me. She was in the kitchen with Ryan, arranging drinks and laughing at something I couldn't hear. She didn't even look up. I stood there, waiting, just hoping for a glance, a wave, a smile. Nothing. Guests trickled in, some giving me that polite, uncomfortable smile people wear when they know something's wrong, but pretend everything's fine. Wendy came over and asked gently, "Are you okay?" I smiled. Why wouldn't I be? At 7:30, Paula stood in the center of the room to blow out her candles. Ryan was right beside her, his arms slung around her shoulders like it belonged there. Someone joked, "You two look like a couple." Everyone laughed, so did Paula. She didn't deny it. I didn't even feel my own heartbeat after that. I sat on the edge of the sofa, clutching the necklace box in my palm so tightly I thought it might snap open. I waited for her to come over, to say something. Anything. She never did. Eventually, I stepped outside to get some air. Wendy followed me out a few minutes later. "She's been weird lately," she said softly. "I know. She says everything's fine, but I can tell something's off." I didn't respond. I was too busy trying to figure out how the woman I loved had slipped so far away without a fight, without a goodbye, without even noticing. When we went back inside, Paula was pouring drinks for Ryan and taking selfies with him. Someone shouted, "One with the birthday girl and her favorite guy." They posed, and just before the flash, she rested her head on his shoulder. That was it. Something in me broke, not from anger, not even jealousy, just quiet disbelief. I had shown up for her again, with the gift she once said she loved. I worked around her schedule. I stood there while she laughed in someone else's arms, and I realized she'd made it clear. I didn't matter. Later that night, while people danced and talked, I walked over to her. "Can we talk?" I asked. She looked at me like I was interrupting something sacred. "Now?" she asked. "I'm kind of busy." She glanced at Ryan laughing with someone across the room. "Can it wait?" Sure, it could wait. But I wouldn't. I caught Wendy's eyes across the room. She'd been watching. She always did. Quiet, kind, the kind of friend who doesn't push but always notices too much. I smiled. She smiled back, warm, hesitant. That's when I decided, if Paula wanted to treat me like a stranger, I'd stop playing the loyal shadow. If she wanted me invisible, I'd show her that I still existed, and I wouldn't let her forget. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from anger, not from heartbreak, from silence. She came home late, probably after helping Ryan clean up. I was already in bed, eyes closed, pretending to sleep. She paused in the doorway, then tiptoed past me like I was a stranger, and that's exactly how it felt. The next morning, she was already dressed when I walked into the kitchen. "Going to Ryan's," she said, pouring coffee like everything was normal. "He needs help finalizing an event for work." I didn't say anything, just took a bite of toast. She hesitated, watching me. Maybe waiting for me to stop her, maybe hoping I'd react, but I didn't. 10 minutes later, she left. Quiet. Like she was used to walking away. I stared at the chair where she used to sit. I thought about all the little things that had slowly disappeared. The way she used to call on her lunch breaks. The way she'd steal bites off my plate when she thought I wasn't looking. When had it all shifted? Maybe it was the day she forgot, our anniversary, or when she stopped inviting me to work events. Or maybe it was last night when she laughed too comfortably in someone else's arms. And the worst part? She didn't even know what she'd done. She just assumed I'd always be there. That my silence meant patience, not pain. But I was tired. Tired of being the second choice. Tired of explaining her choices to myself. Tired of holding on to someone who wasn't holding me back. At work, I couldn't concentrate. Everything blurred. My boss asked if I was okay. "I'm just tired," I said. That wasn't a lie. Wendy texted me that afternoon. "You okay?" I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Yeah, just thinking." She wrote back, "You didn't deserve what happened last night." I didn't reply. What could I say? That I knew? That I'd spent months hoping she'd come back? That sometimes the worst heartbreak isn't when someone leaves, but when they stay and act like you're not even there. By the evening, Paula still hadn't called. I pictured her with Ryan again, maybe watching a movie, maybe laughing. I used to be her person. Now I was barely a presence. That night, I sat alone on the couch, the unopened necklace still in my hand. But something inside me had gone quiet and clear. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to compete. If she had already made her choice, if not in words, then in actions, then I would finally make mine. 2 days later, she came home early. Around 7, that was unusual. She walked in with food from her favorite Thai place and set it on the table. "I thought we could eat together," she said. I looked up. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't cold either. She looked cautious. I nodded. She carefully unpacked. The food even gave me the extra packet of hot sauce I always liked. "You always forget this," I said quietly. She looked surprised. "I thought you didn't use it anymore." "No, you just stopped bringing it." Her hand froze mid-reach. We ate in silence for a while. Then she said, "Ryan's taking a job overseas. He'll be gone soon." I didn't react. She kept going. "He probably won't be around much before that. He's got family to see, things to pack." "Good for him," I said. "That's it?" she asked, staring at me. "What else is there?" "You're not even going to ask if I'll miss." "Him?" I set my chopsticks down. "Do you want me to?" She bit her lip. "Mitchell, I just thought you'd care more." I studied her face. "Why? So I'd yell, break down, give you a reason to feel needed again?" She looked stunned, like I'd slapped her. I started clearing the table. "You only noticed me when I stopped reacting," I said. "When I started choosing silence over confrontation, suddenly I'm the bad guy?" She followed me to the kitchen. "That's not true, isn't it?" I turned to face her. "You ignored me at your own party. You chose him, over and over, and now that he's leaving, I'm supposed to matter again?" She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered the last thing I ever expected. "Wendy told me. She likes you." The plate froze in my hand. "I didn't believe it at first," she said. "But then I started noticing the way she looks at you, the way she talks to you." I asked her. She didn't deny it. I turned to her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I realized I might lose you." I stared at her, not with anger, just something heavier. "You already did," I said. She looked like the wind had been knocked out of her, and that's when I understood. The twist wasn't just Ryan leaving, or Wendy having feelings. It was Paula realizing too late that she'd built her world around someone who never planned to stay, while the one who did was the one she stopped seeing. Some realizations don't come with a second chance. Next weekend, Wendy invited me to a dinner with some mutual friends. Paula wasn't going, said she was tired and told me I should go if I wanted. I went. Not for Wendy, not for anyone else, for myself. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe without feeling like I was constantly disappointing someone. Wendy didn't make it weird. She didn't hover. She sat beside me, talked casually, and quietly passed me the water when I forgot to reach for it. At the end of the night, we walked out at the same time. The sky was low and gray, the air cool. "Are you okay?" she asked. I nodded. "You sure?" I paused. "No," I said. She didn't press. Just walked quietly beside me. At the end of the block, I stopped. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did Paula ever tell you when she stopped being in love with me?" Wendy took a deep breath. She never said it straight out, but there were moments. She talked about you like you were furniture, familiar, useful, but not exciting. I nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." She hesitated. Mitchell. I'd never try to hurt her. She's my friend. But I saw how she treated you. I saw you keep showing up, and her walking past like you weren't even there. And in that moment, I realized, maybe the loudest heartbreaks don't come when someone leaves. They come when they stay, but act like they already did. I used to think you'd always be there. You were safe. You were steady. And I guess somewhere, along the way, I stopped trying because I thought I didn't have to. I looked at her. Really looked. And I saw it. Not just guilt. Not just regret. But fear. The kind that sets in when you realize someone's finally let go. You used to be the person I ran to, I said quietly. Now, you're the reason I want to leave the room. She blinked quickly, trying to keep the tears from falling. I want to fix this, she whispered. Please, tell me what to do. I'll do anything. That's when I stood up and walked over to the drawer. I pulled out a small box and placed it on the table between us. Do you remember this? I asked. Her eyes widened. You bought it? I did. A month before your birthday. She opened the box slowly, her fingers trembling. Inside was a necklace. When she saw it, a quiet gasp slipped from her lips. Her hand went to her mouth. I remembered, I said softly. But you forgot. She closed the box, staring at it, then looked up at me. Why didn't you give it to me? Because that night, I said, my voice steady, you were already wearing someone else's. Attention. She shook her head, starting to say something. No, I cut in gently. Let me finish. I sat down across from her. For months, I waited for her to come back to me. I made excuses for the distance, the coldness. I told myself Ryan was just a phase, that maybe she was stressed, that maybe I was being unfair. But deep down, I knew. I just didn't want to admit that the love we had wasn't there anymore, at least, not from her. She wiped her face. Said nothing. I don't hate you, I said quietly. You were important to me. You still are. But I can't be with someone who needed to lose me just to see me. She opened her mouth, but the words didn't come, and then my phone buzzed. A message from Wendy. I hope you're okay. Let me know if you need anything. I looked up at Paula. There's something else, I said. What? She asked, her voice already bracing. I told everyone at your party that I got engaged. Her face went pale. I said it because I needed to break the cycle, I continued. To stop being the one you only noticed when I was halfway out the door. You said it to hurt me. No, I said. I said it to remind myself that I still mattered, that I was still worth being seen. And Wendy? She asked quietly. I nodded. She said yes. Her hand covered her mouth. Her eyes widened. Wendy's not a replacement, I added. She didn't ask for any of this, but she was there when you weren't. The room fell completely silent. The only sound was Paula's shaky breathing as she tried not to break. So that's it? She asked. We're just done? I looked down at the necklace. You stopped being mine long before I stopped trying, I said. But deep down, I think you always knew I wouldn't wait forever. She lowered her head. This time, the tears came. I hope you find someone who makes you feel like you belong again, I told her gently, because I did, and I would have stayed forever if you had just looked up. Then I stood up, walked to the door, and left. No screaming, no dramatic ending. Just silence. 3 weeks later, I sat in the cafe where Wendy and I first met. It had been raining that day. She had offered to share her umbrella while we waited for a cab. She didn't say much, just smiled and held it over both of us like it was the most natural thing in the world. That's how she is. Simple gestures. A quiet presence. Today, sunlight spilled through the windows, casting golden light across the floor. It felt warmer, honest. Wendy sat across from me, gently stirring her tea. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. I nodded. "I've never been more sure." She smiled, but there was a hesitation in her eyes. "I don't want to be the reason Paula lost something." "You're not," I said. "She lost me on her own. You're just the one who reminded me what it felt like to be seen again." Her eyes softened. "I never thought it would end this way," she said. "Neither did I replied. "But sometimes the cleanest break comes when people finally show you who they are." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small velvet box. "You left this with me. Thought you might want it back." I opened the lid. The ring was still there. Simple, elegant. I'd picked it out long ago, planning to propose on Paula's next birthday. Funny how things change. I snapped the box shut and slid it into my pocket. Later that night, Wendy and I walked into the charity gala Paula had organized. She looked stunning in a navy gown, moving through the crowd with practiced grace. The moment she saw us, her expression faltered. Just for a second. But it was enough. "Mitchell," she said, voice tight. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I wasn't going to come," I replied. But then I remembered. I promised to support causes that matter. She blinked, trying to decide if I was mocking her. Wendy smiled politely. "Lovely setup, Paula. You really outdid yourself." Paula nodded, her gaze flicking between us. "You two seem close." I just looked at her. "It's nice, isn't it?" I said. "To be with someone who doesn't make you feel like a ghost." Her jaw clenched. "So this is revenge?" "No," I said calmly. "This is closure." The lights dimmed for the ceremony. We took our seats. From the corner of my eye, I saw Paula glance over more than once. After the event, Wendy and I stepped outside. The night air was crisp, clear. Everything felt lighter. Just as we were about to leave, I heard footsteps. "Mitchell." I turned. Paula stood there, arms crossed, eyes full of something I couldn't name anymore. "I just want to ask one thing," she said softly. "Was there ever a version of this where you would have stayed?" I looked at her for a long moment. "There was," I said. "But that version of you would have chosen me before you had to lose me." She closed her eyes. "I loved you," she whispered. "I know," I said. "But you didn't protect that love. You left it unguarded until someone else made me feel seen again." She looked at Wendy, then back at me. "So what now?" I stepped closer, my voice still gentle. "Now, you keep walking forward, just not toward me." "I thought we were forever," she said. Nodded slowly. "You thought I'd stay, no matter how you treated me. That was your mistake. Mine was thinking you'd never forget what we had." She looked like she wanted to say something else, but she didn't. Her eyes glistened, and she took a step back. Turned to Wendy and held out my hand. She took it without hesitation. As we walked away, Paula called out one last time, "Mitchell." I stopped but didn't turn. "I hope she never makes you feel the way I did." I looked over my shoulder. She already doesn't. Then I kept walking. No guilt, no weight, just the finality of a door I had kept open far too long. Finally, closing. When we reached the car, Wendy looked at me quietly. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, for the first time in years. I am." I leaned against the door and took a deep breath. "She used to make me feel small," I said. "Like I had to earn her attention, earn her time, her presence." Wendy looked at me. "And now I know. I never had to beg for something that should have been given freely." She smiled and rested her head on my shoulder. Revenge hadn't come in the form of anger or cruelty. It came with grace, with walking away, with showing her that the man she thought would always wait had already been seen by someone who never needed reminding of his worth. And as we drove away, I didn't look back. Some endings aren't meant to be mourned. They're meant to be left behind. Head high, heart light, and finally free.